Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a la Esquina Española. Yo soy Profe Tanner y hoy vamos a hablar de la pronunciación española. Today we're going to talk about Spanish pronunciation. We're just going to roll through the alphabet and talk about how each letter sounds in Spanish. What's cool about Spanish is its spelling was largely finalized and related to its pronunciation a long time ago. So it's maintained a level of stability in terms of letter to sound that a lot of other languages haven't benefited from. So let's go through it. By the way, I'm a gringa. Nobody in my family speaks Spanish. Nadie en mi familia habla español. Entonces I had to really teach myself how to sound like a native speaker. And knowing what each letter sounded like and then working on stringing them together was a great way for me to get started. So let's get started. We're going to start with A. A is always pronounced A, like the A in father in English, but it's not quite as narrow of a jaw sound. So instead of being ah and father, you want to widen your jaw a little bit and say ah, kind of like the sound when you're going to a doctor's. Ah. The next letter is B. Now, B is not as aggressive as the English B. That's because the amount of air pressure that builds up behind your lips is lower in the Spanish B. I studied linguistics in college, so my nerdiness is going to be coming out a little bit in this video. So you want to put your lips together, really soften them, and then gently blow air out in B. Almost like you're just lightly sliding them together, B. The se in Spanish can be pronounced two different ways according to international Spanish pronunciation. One way is ka, the hard C sound, which is the sound you'll hear in the spellings before A, O, or U. So carro or corre or curioso, all of them have that k sound. On the other hand, if you have a C before an E or an I, you'll hear the S, like an S sound. So ciencia is an example of that. The next letter, de. Now for de, you really want to soften your D. It's, again, not as much air, and the tongue's actually a little further forward in the mouth. It's touching the back of the teeth, and you almost are pushing it out to make a V sound, but you're pulling it back before that happens, so it's de. E is always pronounced e, spelled the letter E in English, but it's always pronounced e, like in pet. F is the same as in English. G is very interesting. So G is G, and it can be the hard G, the G sound, before the same letters where the C is the hard C. So before A, O, and U. So you might have gastar, or goma, or gusto, like as in mucho gusto. And then you can also have the G. Now this is one where I sound more like a regional Spanish speaker because I studied in Spain and I have this throaty G sound, but it can also be heard as the softer H sound, so a H. And that would be before E or I, so gesto or gimnasio. Speaking of the H sound, the next letter is H, and H is always silent. I need the clapping emojis. H is always silent in Espanol, and this causes a lot of problems in spelling for native speakers, and it also causes a lot of pronunciation errors in non-native speakers. The H is always silent. You do not want to say hola. The next letter is I, and that's pronounced E, and it's always pronounced E no matter where you find it. J is pronounced much like that soft G, so it's either the H, the throaty H, or the soft H, H. K is always pronounced Ka. L is always La, unless you see two L's, in which case it actually makes the Y sound. So it's not Hola me llamo, it's Hola me llamo. M makes the M sound, N makes the N sound, and Ny is a special Spanish letter. It actually is kind of only in Spanish, and it's the Ñ sound. And when I teach this in my class, I tell everyone to pretend you don't like something and go Ñ, and that's kind of the sound you want to make. This sound actually exists in many languages, including English, in my home state of California. After that, we have O, and it's always pronounced O, which is kind of like the O in rose, but again, you want to soften the jaw, and so instead of O, it's O. P is P, Q is pronounced K. So you heard me right, the Q sound is pronounced K. It's not pronounced Qua, even when it's in front of a U. So if you Here, if you see the word que, which is a very common Spanish word, it means a lot of things. I often refer to it as the magic Spanish word. It is pronounced que and not que. R can be pronounced in two different ways depending on its spelling. If you see a single R in Espanol, that's a very close sound to like a D or a T. It's actually what's called a flap. So this is the sound that many English speakers produce when they say words like city, where it's not quite a true city and it's not a city, it's a city. And so that's a flap where your tongue is just barely going to touch that ridge right behind your teeth. So you'll hear that when you see one R in Espanol. If you see two, it's the super fun trill. So that's the ra. So listen to me and see if you can hear the difference between caro and carro. They mean totally different things. One means expensive, caro, and the other one means car, carro. After R we have S. S is always S. There's not really an SH sound in Spanish except for regional varieties. The te is just like the D, where it's actually a little further forward in the mouth. It touches the back of the teeth and it's much softer, so it's te. U is always oo, always. It's never the sound. And the only other option it might be is actually silent, and it kind of helps the consonant before it make a slightly different sound. So we're going to see that in two examples. One is cuando, where it actually makes this w sound with the C. So if you have C and then U and then another vowel, it's going to make the qua sound. And in other cases, like here we have guia, it helps that G become a G sound before this I, because if that U wasn't there, it would be a hia, and that's a different word. After the U, we have the ve, and ve is also a little bit different than the V that we think of in English. So English speakers make V by closing their top teeth over their bottom lip. We're not going to do that in Espanol. We're actually going to barely touch our lips together, but not close them all the way. So V, and that would be the sound a V makes between two vowels like cava. But if it starts a word, you would have vaca, which is much more similar to that initial B sound that I taught earlier. W kind of doesn't exist in Spanish, so we're going to skip it. X can make the x sound, the h sound, the h soft H sound, or even sometimes a sh sound regionally. Y says y or e. English speakers should be very familiar with that. And Z is always pronounced like an S. It's never the Z sound where you can actually feel your vocal folds vibrating. It's always going to be the S sound in international Spanish. You may also hear the F sound if you are in certain parts of Spain. Okay, so that's the basic set of sounds en Español. Really quickly, we're just going to read through this together to point out a couple more things. So here we have guía. Everybody say guía. Guía de, notice that that de is not de, it's de pronunciación. Now, this O and this I both have funny little hats. Those are their accents, and those want to be there. They're not just decoration. They actually help readers and listeners understand the meaning of this word. So guía, the stress or the emphasis in that word is on that I, and it's those little hats or those accents are telling you, this is where I want the stress and the emphasis in my word. So guía de pronunciación. You can hear it there on the O. I hope this helped. We'll talk more about accentuation in a later video. Adios!